You're standing in the shower, the water is turning cold, and you haven't moved for 15 minutes because you are deep in the middle of a conversation that hasn't even happened yet. You are delivering the most articulate, devastatingly honest response to someone who hurt you years ago. In your head, they are finally quiet. In your head, they finally understand exactly how heavy they made your world. And then, the sound of a car horn outside, or a notification on your phone, pulls you back, and you realize you've been staring at a wall with the expression of someone fighting for their life. If you just felt a sharp, quiet pang of recognition, I want you to take a deep breath. You aren't crazy, you aren't losing it. And you are certainly not the only one living in a secret theater of your own making. You are likely what we call a high masker. Someone who looks perfectly functional to the outside world, holding down a job and paying the bills, while your internal world is running a marathon just to keep you upright. The world sees you as the strong one, the person who has it all together, the therapist friend who always knows what to say. But inside, you are profoundly exhausted. I see how heavy that mask is, and you can put it down for a moment. You are safe here. Society likes to label what you're doing as overthinking or being unmotivated. They might even call it lazy when you spend hours in bed lost in these scenarios, instead of being productive. But in the language of the nervous system, this isn't a flaw. It's a brilliant adaptation. You see, your brain has something called a default mode network. It's the part of your wiring that clicks on the moment you stop focusing on the task in front of you. For most people, it's just a place for idle thoughts. But for you, this network has become a fortress. You have spent your whole life managing other people's emotions, so they wouldn't abandon you. You've had to become a human thermostat, constantly reading the temperature of every room you walk into, adjusting your own soul, just to keep the people around you from catching fire. And when the real world becomes too volatile, too unpredictable, or too lonely, your brain does something incredible to protect you. It builds a world where you finally have the control you were denied as a child. Think of it this way: the armor you built to survive the battlefield of your past is now weighing you down in peacetime. It's not that you want to be antisocial or a loner. It's just that your nervous system gets so overstimulated by the energetic demands of others that solitude and the safety of your own mind is the only place where you truly feel at peace. This habit of imagining fake scenarios is actually your body's way of running survival software. Specifically, it often points to a freeze or fawn trauma response. When the freeze response takes over, your system decides that the real world is too much, so it shuts down your physical body and sends your consciousness into a digital-like simulation where things make sense. When you fawn, you spend your mental energy rehearsing how to please others, or how to explain yourself so perfectly that they can't possibly be angry with you. You aren't doing this because you're weak. You're doing this because, at some point in your life, your safety depended on your ability to predict the unpredictable. You learned that if you could just script the conversation well enough, you might avoid the pain. You are essentially surviving a threat that is no longer in the room. You've spent so long blending into the colors of what other people need you to be that when you look in the mirror, you're not even sure what your original color is anymore. And that is why these scenarios feel so addictive. In your mind, you are allowed to be angry. In your mind, you are allowed to be loved. In your mind, you are finally allowed to be seen. But the cost of living in that secret theater is that the real world starts to feel thin and gray. You feel lonely even in a crowded room because no one is actually talking to you. They are talking to the curated, highly managed version you present to stay safe. I want you to know that it makes complete sense why you built these walls. You didn't build them to shut the world out. You built them to keep yourself from falling apart. Thank your nervous system for doing its job for so long. It did exactly what it was designed to do. It helped you survive. But you aren't that helpless child anymore. You have choices now that you didn't have back then. And as we move forward, we're going to look at how to slowly, very gently, begin to leave the gate of that fortress unlocked. But for us to understand why this theater exists, we have to look into the mirror, not the one on your wall, but the one in your memories. Imagine a younger version of you, sitting in a room that felt a little too quiet or a little too loud. You were the child who learned to read the vibration of the floorboards when someone walked down the hallway. You learned that if you could predict the mood of the adults in the house, you could stay safe. You became a master at pre-living moments. If you could imagine every possible argument, every potential rejection, and every scenario where you might be too much, then maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't hurt so much when it actually happened. You were the Atlas child holding up the sky so it wouldn't crush the people you love, while nobody ever thought to ask how your own shoulders were doing. And that is where the scripts began. The tragedy is that you've spent your whole life being the therapist, the protector, and the overachiever, but you still feel like a stranger in your own life because the real you is still hidden away in that secret theater, where it's finally safe to be angry, or sad, or deeply seen. But here is the truth that the world won't tell you. The war you are still fighting is over. You are still running outdated survival software in an environment that is actually safe now. You are surviving a threat that is no longer in the room. The ghosts of your past are still rattling the pipes of your nervous system every time someone gets too close, making you run back into the fortress of your mind. And I want you to hear this clearly. You do not need to fix yourself. You are not a broken machine that needs to be recalibrated. You are an intelligent, sensitive human who adapted brilliantly to a world that didn't know how to hold you. So let yourself off the hook for the time you've spent gone. Healing isn't about tearing down the whole fortress today. That would be terrifying. Instead, maybe for today, you can just leave the gate unlocked. Maybe you can allow one real conversation to be unscripted. Maybe you can allow yourself to be a little bit not okay, without having to rehearse how you'll explain it to everyone else. You've carried the weight of the sky for long enough. You can put it down now. You can just breathe. The shift begins when you realize that your imagination isn't a place to hide, but a map of what your heart is actually starving for. If your fake scenarios are about being a hero, perhaps you need to start acknowledging your own strength. If they are about being comforted, perhaps you need to let someone finally take care of you. Your system is just trying to meet your needs in the only way it knows how. Be gentle with that system. If this felt like a mirror to your own soul, I want you to know that you are not alone in this theater. I create these videos for people like us. The high maskers, the secret dreamers, the ones who feel everything. If you found a moment of safety here, consider subscribing so we can keep exploring these deep waters together. Share your story in the comments if you feel ready. Your words might be the exact light someone else needs to see their way out of the dark. Thank you for trusting me with your time. The drawbridge is starting to lower, and that is more than enough for today.